Everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to feel like they're getting better. For us, I think it's a really great market where you get people with really high educational standards, a drive to connect and be global and grow, coupled with a collaborative nature that maybe you don't find in some other parts of the region. One of our internal values is very much that we own our own mistakes and we own our own opportunity, where we're trying to take everything that we think is really special about the Sri Lankan culture, that communal nature, that family orientation, that willingness to help each other, which you don't always see in the United States, and then marry it with the ambition and growth and personal reflection that is so highlighted in the great things that Sri Lanka brings to our business culture. I would never want to lose that. I would like to do more. I think I'll still always be connected to Sri Lanka and have a love for Sri Lanka.
Welcome back to Power Moves. This is episode 12. Imagine a world where your career isn't confined or defined by borders, job titles, or even traditional roles as we have been accustomed to. A career that is shaped by your curiosity, your creativity, and also something with a global connection. Today we are going to be unpacking that very concept and show that talent can rise from anywhere and connect with everywhere. And today my guest is someone who is very well versed in that topic, and I'm sure it'll be a very intriguing conversation. All the way from San Diego, California, Matt Wallaert, Chief Experience Officer at Oceans. Matt, welcome to Sri Lanka. I know you're no stranger to the country, but welcome to our studios. I'm glad to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really going to be great.
Amazing. So Matt, right off the bat, you are a behavioral scientist.
Yeah,
yes?
Absolutely.
Above being the CXO at Oceans.
Yep.
And you're also a global thought leader. So I want to firstly talk about this entire concept of redefining what a career is.
Yeah.
When you talk big picture, traditionally, you get your formal education, you go into a good job at a reputed company. At least that's the Sri Lankan framework, right? You go into a job at a reputed company, then maybe you retire with a gold watch, a fancy car, and a nice house. But now, climbing that corporate ladder, retiring with that gold watch, yes, they're all attainable, but then you have broken that mold with the rise of Oceans and the concept that you have introduced. Tell us what exactly it is.
Yeah, I mean, so I think you really hit on an important part there. That is, if you think about the first epoch of work, it's very much based on monetary gain.
Yes.
Right? It's all about compensation. Yeah. And it just turns out that there's a limit to how happy compensation can make you. Hey, making the right compensation is important. I don't think compensation is not important. And, we have pushed really hard to pay our divers at the very, very top of the market to push value up. But I don't think it stops with that. I think, and there was a revelation, I think probably 15, 20 years ago. I gave a TED talk about 10 years ago now about meaning at work, right? And this shift from just money-based work to meaning-based work, and the idea that you want to do things in the world. But the limitation of that is, hey, not every company can provide meaningful work, right? Not every company can figure out how to show people what they're doing is impactful. What we really discovered at Oceans is there's a third leg of that triangle, and that's growth. Everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to feel like they're getting better. And if you talk to Oceans divers about why they left the sort of traditional Sri Lankan ladder-based career and came to Oceans, every single time it's about, I wanted a different growth path than what was available to me in the Sri Lankan market.
Right. Why Sri Lanka?
I mean, I think we have a long history with Sri Lanka. Our founder, Ian, who's a good friend of mine, had worked with another company that had some folks here, so he knew a little bit about the market. What really impresses me about Sri Lanka is it's a wonderful blend of, Americans ask me often about what it's like to come to Sri Lanka. I always say it's like if India and Jamaica had a baby, right? Like that's Sri Lanka. It's has all of the collaborative, cooperative nature of an island nation with the sort of drive, intelligence, thoughtfulness that you see from sort of, South Asia in general. And so for us, I think it's a really great market where you get people with really high educational standards, a drive to connect and be global and grow, coupled with a collaborative nature that maybe you don't find in some other parts of the region, countries not to be named.
So yeah, exactly. So you brought the conversation to a very important point right off the bat. When you talk about Sri Lankan professionals and the Sri Lanka professional landscape here, our professionals here are known for their resilience, their adaptability, and also their technical foundations, because their formal education is quite strong. They're very adaptable. We've been through quite a lot, to be honest. But we face challenges in limited access when it comes to accessing global networks. But I feel like what you have introduced is a borderless pathway for them to grow and to connect with top tier teams. From your perspective, what are some of the key strengths that Sri Lankan professionals bear? And also, what are the other elements that impressed you the most when entering Sri Lanka?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about what I think make divers really distinctive is it's their hunger for growth. It's that adaptability. It's that willingness to learn. So when you come into oceans, we have a very rigorous hiring process. So we do a lot of capability-based hiring to try and understand what can you actually do. Not what are you doing in your job, but what are you capable of doing? Because we're very conscious that you might be able to do things that your current employer isn't taking advantage of, right? And so we don't want to restrict people based on, well, this is what you have been doing. Instead, we want to say, well, we want to celebrate what you're capable of. Then people come in and we have a very intensive training. And that training, works on, drawing out and strengthening some of the things that you talked about in terms of resilience, adaptability, attention to detail. I don't think that we're remaking people. I think it's like when you put oil on wood and it really brings out the warmth and the character of the wood. Our training is designed to enhance what's already there.
You're polishing that traits.
100%, right? You got to have the raw metal, but we're going to sort of try and help sharpen that edge. And that I think is really, really unique in this market, and it's something that we've seen over and over again through the years that we've been here. And one of the reasons that we double in size every year, I mean, we started this year at about 200, 250 employees. We're ending the year about 450, 500 employees, and we continue that doubling every year. Is really because the people have been able to come along on a journey, which is a lot of change. I mean, it's hard to build a company. And so part of it, I think, is that growth, and part of that is that resilience and willingness to change, willingness to entertain change. I came into the company almost a year ago at this point, and I was taking the company from a place where early in startups everything's kind of built with sticks and spit and wood, and you're sort of just like, and with the last year we've really caution. And also just a lot of we don't know if this is going to work, so it's temporary, right?
Exactly.
And over the last year, we've really rebuilt the things out of brick. We now have a really well-established norms, really well-established policies. We've taken our diver attrition has gone down 5x over the last year as people have really started to get into our culture of like, this is how we grow, this is who we are, and so that people can make an active choice. We want to be what we call an opinionated employer, meaning I don't want to be someplace for everybody. I want to be someplace where you really do understand what we're about and you make an active choice about whether that aligns with your values or not. And that means you can't be for everybody, and you have to have opinions, and it has to be a place where people feel comfortable taking risks. And so probably the third thing that I see really uniquely in Sri Lanka then that really stands out in our divers is risk taking, right? They're willing to put themselves on the line to grow, to achieve they're willing to leave a more stable, MAS, I'm going to be here forever, and I can sort of half-ass the job and it'll still kind of go okay, to someplace where, no, we're going to push you every single day. We're going to push you. But what you come out is feeling like I am the best possible version of myself. I'm doing, right at the peak of my skills. That's what we want for everybody.
Great. So when we talk about challenges and visibility to access, especially for professionals in our region and Sri Lanka in particular, even the most talented individuals can go unnoticed without the right networks. What are some of the systematic and structural obstacles you have identified in Sri Lanka and our region as a whole when trying to gain that global visibility for a professional?
I mean, it's hard. You're talking about a country, 22, 24 million people. So it's big, right? But you're sitting right next to one of the biggest countries in the world,
a bigger
right?
country.
And because of that, I think it just becomes dwarfed. I don't think the average employer knows that much about Sri Lanka or Sri Lankans, doesn't understand, lumps them in with, the experiences they might have had in India, even though you and I know they're going to have a very different experience with Sri Lankans. And so traditionally, the way for Sri Lankans to grow has been emigration, right? You go into the American market, you go work at a Microsoft, but you work, having gone to the US.
But now it doesn't mean you packing up and physically, geographically moving.
And that's what we want, right? We want to say, let's take the same job that you would get if you used to move to the United States, but let's allow you to stay in Sri Lanka.
Stay connected to your family.
100%. The family piece is a huge one. Look, emigration is great. If you want to emigrate, I think that's awesome. I have lived in other countries around the world. I think that's a fantastic thing. But not everybody wants to do that, and not everybody wants to do that at every
has
phase.
Different family values and connections.
100%. Not everybody wants to do that every phase of life. If you go to the U.S. and you raise your kids there, your kids are going to be Americans, right? They're going to be Americans first, Sri Lankans second. Not everybody wants that for their kids. And so we want to open a pathway to say, hey, you can get the same economic benefits, you can get the same career growth, you can get the same caretaking that you would get there, but do it here. And that's our job. At Oceans, we really... one of our internal values is very much that we own our own mistakes and we own our own opportunities, right? And so we try to hire for capability and then say, hey, it's on us to find you the right thing.
Yeah.
So, unlike a bunch of staffing agencies, we don't fire people if they're not with a client, right? We guarantee your employment. You're here with us. You're going to stay with us, even when you don't have a client, because it's our job to find a client. That's not your problem.
Exactly.
So why would I punish you for something that's not in your control? Right? Oceans is about creating a stable environment that allows people to stay in Sri Lanka and grow.
Amazing. Talking about the power of global exposure for you to grow. When a professional gains experience with a world-class team, the growth is exponential, right? Yeah. How does that kind of exposure influence a person's personal development, their confidence, and also their leadership activity?
100%. So at Oceans, we think of growth in two ways. So everybody at Oceans has 12 levels. Okay. 6 of them are associated with your role. So let's say if you're a financial operations specialist, you're going to have 6, things like bookkeeping, financial analytics that we're going to rate you on. And you're going to get a rating based on your capability. What are you capable of doing? And then the other 6 are actually what we call our Oceans values, or our core. And everybody shares the same core. So it's things like, we say no one dives alone, right? Your ability to participate in a community, support other people, demonstrate that leadership you talked about, perpetually above and beyond. How do you look at something and then say, okay, well, what's the next version? Perpetual learning, right? Hey, everybody's going to go ahead and find a way to continue to grow. So those value-based things, are a really distinctive part of our Oceans culture in terms of helping people really hit that personal path. It's not just, can you do these role-based capability things? Are you getting better at analytics? Can you do these functional things? It's also are you developing as a person? Now, sometimes that development's really challenging. I mean, you are traditionally working, most of our clients are in the United States, and there are cultural differences. One of the things that seeps into our company, for example, is, often in Sri Lankan companies, you have what I call a bad dad, good mom problem. So you have a manager who mostly yells at you, mostly about performance. And then you have an HRBP who is mostly soft and kind and talks to you about your problems. And then they fight with each other about what's going on with you. Yeah. At Oceans, we centralize that. We have HRBPs and they are supportive and they help with your mentorship and growth. But at the end of the day, your pod leader, the person who is going to spend the most time with you, is both the person who's pushing you to achieve, but also the person who's supporting that achievement. That's a much more American style of management. And so we're a fascinating hybrid of a company where we're trying to take everything that we think is really special about the Sri Lankan culture, that communal nature, that family orientation, that willingness to help each other, which you don't always see in the United States. And then marry it with the ambition and growth and personal reflection that is so highlighted in America. And we're hoping that what we end up is a blend that's better than either, because it combines the strengths of both.
Wow, okay. We live in an era of AI, digital. There is a lot of uncertainty on how jobs will be affected, what sort of jobs will be affected, what sort of new opportunities will come forward. In such an era, in such a transitional period, Matt, you have to future-proof your talent, right? In a world where these job roles are constantly evolving, how can professionals, especially from Sri Lanka and our region, future-proof themselves without relying solely on these formal structures and companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. I think AI has been very good for us as a company because a lot of our customers are coming to us because they don't want just some guy using AI, right? They could go on Fiverr or some freelance network and find a Sri Lankan, but what they often feel like is, well, I'm really just getting a thin veneer on ChatGPT. That person is using AI to generate fairly generic work, right? But when you come to Oceans, you're getting an employee. You're getting somebody that's joining their team. They're thoughtful. They're going above and beyond. One of the things about AI is it can only do what you ask it to do, right? It will never be proactive, right? It will never take the next step. It doesn't look for growth.
Exactly.
AI doesn't want to grow. Humans, what makes humans humans is our really distinctive desire to be better every day.
Definitely.
Right? It's something that seems to be unique in the animal world. We don't see this other places, right? You don't see animals practicing very often, as an example.
Exactly.
Whereas humans really do train to become better every day. And that's just something AI can't do and can't replicate. And so when you think about future proofing, I think there are technical tools and it's good to read things and keep up with things.
Definitely, yeah.
But the real thing that is distinctive, the real thing that I think you want to double down on is your ability to grow every day. To say, hey, I understand where I'm limited and I understand how I'm going to overcome that limitation, right? And that desire to perpetually be better every day, that is the thing that is future-proof. That is the thing that will mean that you will always, always, always have a job.
And how have you seen that desire within Sri Lanka professionals and the Sri Lanka job market?
Well, I think it's interesting, right? I mean, obviously, even at 500 divers, we're a minor employer in a company.
In a large context.
In a large context,
Definitely,
right?
yeah.
We're getting bigger, but like, 500 out of 24 million is not.
Stands, yes.
We're not the biggest.
Yeah.
So some of it is self-selection bias, right? The people who choose to work at Oceans probably have a little bit of that spark already.
Yeah.
What we want to do in 2026 is really expand our outreach efforts. So for example, we're talking about opening up our training. So even rather than being employed at Oceans, we're going to take people who are unemployed and say, hey, we're going to give you a chance to get trained here at Oceans. We're not going to pay you and you're not going to pay us, right? So you don't have to pay for this education, business education. It's not like an MBA. And we're not going to pay you because you're not providing any value, you're not with a client.
Yeah.
But we're going to open up our training and allow you to become better. And we're going to do that for you.
Amazing.
We have a ton of candidates who we really like their technical skills. Their English isn't in the right place.
Yes.
Cool. Can we go create a Saturday academy? We talk about Oceans Academy. Can we teach a free Saturday business education
To improve their communication skills.
100%. And then when you're ready, Oceans is ready for you. So what we want to start to do is internally we talk about hunting, fishing, and farming. We started out as a hunting company, right? Individual recruiters went out into the market, looked for deer that were
Headhunted them.
Yeah, headhunted them back and brought them back, but one at a time. What we've started to do is more what we call fishing, meaning we started to do, for example, group events where we'll bring in 20, 30, 40 people. We'll do a full day event with them. We'll get them, working on some business problems, trying some things together, demonstrating that, and then we'll hire out of that pool, right? We still have to go out into the world, but big fishing net, you can get a lot more at one time rather than individually going out. Where we want to get in 2026 and beyond is farming. So what we want to say is, hey, there's a growth pathway at Oceans. Hey, you're a new grad, right? You're not ready for Oceans. You got to have some business experience, right? You need to have been in the market. We hire people, 3, 4, 5, 10 years of experience.
Yeah.
But can we get you on that pathway now? Can we give you can we give you online education?
Can we give you
100%. Can we give you once a month events? Can Matt Wallaert come give a talk in your class? How can we start to get you on this pathway really early so that 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now, as Oceans, if we keep doubling every year, at some point, we're going to need more out of Sri Lanka. And so how do we invest in Sri Lanka to make sure that talent pool is growing in the same way we're growing?
Right, great. So talking about building confidence among professionals, how have you gone about helping your Sri Lankan divers and your employees to build that confidence to go through global doors, to work with global teams, especially in the United States, right? It might be daunting, it might be overwhelming, but how do you build that confidence within our Sri Lankan employee base?
Yeah, 100%. And that does go very core to one of those, large cultural differences. Americans are much more assertive. right? And so they're going to expect their employees to be much more assertive.
Exactly.
And so we're really lucky because our head of diver success, Kavita, is a former educator. And so the person who's responsible for everybody's growth comes from an educational background. And I think that really does benefit. We have a really top-notch training team. We have an initial training team and we have an ongoing training team. So it's not just when you come in, it's a continual growth pathway. And then we do a ton of activity-based things. So it's not a lot of what we sometimes call sage on the stage, right? I'm right and I know things and I'm going to teach it at you, but rather what we call guide on the side. How can we get you doing activities that challenge you to do this? So we have a really great activity, for example, that people, when they join our training program, we tend to do our trainings at Mareka Tower. And there's an activity where they go into Havelock Mall and we're literally slacking them tasks. So they get used to a client virtually instructing them, and they're challenged to...
They're forced to think on their feet.
To be assertive and to make recommendations, right? And so that people are forced into this. And then we just practice and practice and practice and practice. It's not a lot of... We don't think that the thing that Sri Lankans need is to know things. We think they need to do things. And so much of our education is focused on doing. Do until it becomes second nature, until it feels comfortable, because you can't teach somebody to be assertive. All I can do is find that assertive part of you and bring it out.
And help you nurture it.
Yeah.
Great. Before I go to the final question, let's talk a bit about Sri Lanka. You've been in Sri Lanka for quite some time now, and you're generally being naturalized now. You brought your family down, your parents down, your kid. How do you find the Sri Lankan experience from the first time you come here to the time that you are spending here now? How has it changed your perception on Sri Lanka?
I mean, part of it, as you adapt to any culture, you just find the bits of it that resonate with you, right? Food is an easy example. Sri Lankan cuisine is broad. There's lots of things. But, you find something like, I am a Sini Sambal addict. I will you could just give me a jar and I would, I don't need, I'm eating it with an egg hopper. But honestly, I don't know that I need the egg hopper. I could just eat the Sini Sambal. I mean, that stuff is delicious. Even a lime soda. Like, I love going to different restaurants because some places it's more sugary and some places it's more limey and
it's a bit more sour. Yeah,
it's sort of fun to
experiment.
Start to get a sense of I'm at where I am in my journey with Sri Lanka is starting to learn those second order preferences and nuances.
Right. Okay.
Right. And as much as I've come in and talked about, there are these American style single manager, being more assertive style things. I think it would be a real loss to our company if we just tried to replicate America here. There are so many great things that Sri Lanka brings to our business culture. I would never want to lose that. I would like to do more exploration of the country. It's hard when you're working, right? And I have a 10-year-old at home, so I want to be back in San Diego. I want to be with my family. I don't like being away from him.
Exactly.
It's amazing to work in an era of technology. I'm a little older, and so when I first started doing work internationally, you called your kid on the phone, and it was not a really great experience. Now, he and I get on FaceTime, we play a little Fortnite together, right? We can have a meaningful...
You feel like you're close to him.
Yeah, 100%. But I'd like to... Things I'd like to do, in 2026, I want to spend more time in Jaffna, get up north. I'd like to get farther east than I've been. I think there are pockets of... For better or for worse, Oceans is still relatively Colombo-centric. We do have people in Jaffna and Kandy and around. We have... There's a diver who floats back and forth between the southern beaches and the eastern beaches, right? Wow. Because you can work from anywhere...
It's a dynamic opportunity.
It is a dynamic opportunity. But I would like to spend a little more time getting to some of the places. I mean, look, I think I've had the opportunity to be in a lot of places that come from a civil war background or have had recent civil wars. And just the resilience of Sri Lanka is so amazing to me. You go to a country like Bosnia, where, their civil war is older than yours, right? Or was more acute at an older period than yours. And they're still reeling. They still haven't recovered. They still haven't figured out how to move forward. Sri Lanka's ability to say, hey, we're going to really deeply look at this. I come from the US. We're still grappling with slavery. We still have a hard time looking at that part of ourselves. It is so amazing to me that Sri Lanka has been willing to look at what happened and say, never again. we're going to change this in a really
The
positive
will
way.
of the people,
100%.
that determination.
And that I think reflects in the business. I think I'm so proud of our employees. I always tell them, the only reason I would ever leave Sri Lanka is if I ran out of people. And so the hope is we get enough farming programs going on that never happens.
don't have to.
Yeah,
Right,
that we always have people here. We're always growing, and as the country grows, we grow. There are places where we have thoughts and opinions about the direction we love to see Sri Lanka go. Generally speaking, we are a liberalizing force. We want to see a place that everybody is accepted and has the opportunity to be themselves. That's a place we'd love to see the country go. So there are places where we have thoughts and opinions, but we try and do that in a way that, reflects
The general ideology.
and the understanding that we are a guest here, right? And that we want to be a guest in someone's home in a meaningful way and get invited back again. And,
Amazing.
Have dinner with you, and
Yeah, but
next time I'll cook.
We're hospitable enough, so.
But I am,
You will never feel out of
2026.
place.
Yeah, well, and Nishan, who can't see back there, my head of corp comms is back there.
Yeah.
He and I were talking ahead of time. I'm thinking about buying a place here, right? I'm starting to think about how do I set down more permanent roots here? I spend 25% of my time here, so I'm here 2 weeks every 2 months to be with the team.
Yeah.
And so setting down more permanent roots for me. My son is eager to come back. He came this summer with my wife and my parents, and we went all around. And
Exactly.
he's eager to come back.
So you're an unofficial tourism ambassador.
100%.
In a way.
I mean, it really is. I get a ton of questions from Americans who know that I work in Sri Lanka about Sri Lanka. I encourage them all to come.
Yeah.
One of the things we want to try in 2026 is starting to bring over some of the founders that we work with and expose them
Show
to
them
what
the
it looks.
culture, show them the country.
Right. Unfortunately, it can be very hard to get visas for the Sri Lankans to go visit them in America.
Yes.
So I think we want to flip that on its
Let's
head.
do the
We
other
want to
way
say, all
around.
right, well, you come over here and let's bring the company over here. Let's do offsites here. Let's bring them into the culture. And what I will say is, 50 years from now, when Oceans is a massive company and I'm not working in there anymore because I'm too tired, I think I'll still always be connected to Sri Lanka and have a love for Sri Lanka. I work on my Sinhala every time I'm here.
Yeah.
I'd like to start learning a little Tamil. I feel very connected
Want
to
to
the
integrate
place.
yourself into the culture and society.
I think there are amazing things that you have to give me, and I want to find and receive those things. Cricket is not one of them. It has been explained to
So
me,
many
and I
people
don't
are
think
gonna
it's
be
going to be my
disgruntled
thing,
at
man. But,
Yeah.
Ada Kansini Sambal and it
works
gets you.
You're a happy guy.
I'm a happy guy.
Very quickly, Matt. Unfortunately, we're running out of time on the program. But what would be your message to aspiring professionals from smaller markets like Sri Lanka, but with a wealth of talent and also the drive to make it globally, to build impactful and global careers in, an increasingly borderless world, as we have been discussing?
Yeah, I think, the thing I would say to folks is there is a way, right? I think it's very easy. So, Ian and I, the reason Ian and I know each other, the founder and I know each other, is I'm from very rural Oregon. So I grew up in I lived 20 miles from a town of 3,000.
Wow.
So, my nearest neighbor was kilometers down the road from me. I mean, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. And Ian grew up that way in Vermont, so a different part of the United States.
Yeah.
And then we ended up in New York City. I was working for Microsoft, he was working for a Japanese bank. And we sort of bonded over the fact that we had to leave behind these places that we loved in order to have a job.
Yeah.
And really, Oceans owes its existence to the belief that there is a way wherever you are, and that your job is to make that possible for other people. So I think for people who are struggling, you need to hear there's a way. And for people who have made it, for people where we talk about this at Oceans all the time, you have to make sure that you keep the door open behind you, right? So often what happens in markets like this is people pull the ladder up behind them, right? They rise and then
they get pulled under it.
Right? But what you have to do is, what we want to do is open up that door to everybody. Every single diver at Oceans should want there to be more divers and should want every Sri Lankan to have the same kind of opportunities they want. And we try and enshrine that in our work culture.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you very much, Matt Wallaert, CXO of Oceans, for joining me to talk about Sri Lankan professionals, how this world is now evolving into a world of borderless careers where you can team up with top tier teams from all the way across the world in the United States, but also gain that global experience from the comfort of your own home. Matt, thank you very much for taking the journey and taking the time to join us for this episode. And your work certainly offers a very compelling blueprint for how we might all contribute to a more professional and dynamic professional world. And my message simply for Sri Lankans would be that this is dispelling the notion that a career path should follow a certain blueprint. It shouldn't. Your story shouldn't be equal to another's. So, Matt, thank you very much for coming in, speaking to us, and enlightening all of us. We hope you have a great time this time around, and we hope to see you again in the future when Oceans is a Fortune 500 company.
Thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. See you soon. And that's the way it was on Power Moves episode 12. We will catch you on a brand new episode very soon. Till then, take care and stay safe.